From the studios in San Diego, California, this is Frank Fired Up here on the Mixed Up Sports Network, coming to you live here on this Thursday. It is the 9th day of March 2017. Got a lot to do today with the start of NFL free agency. You also had an impossible comeback from Barcelona last night against Paris Saint-Germain in Spain. And you also had Tim Tebow get an RBI in a spring training game for the New York Metropolitans, which I think, as it happened, I think I heard Skip Bayless have a crisis. I'm not sure about that, but I think I may have heard Skip Bayless have a crisis as that play happened. But we'll begin today with NFL free agency, of course, as it is a very big day in the NFL. You got a bunch of players moving around, changing teams, big names too. You had Alshon Jeffrey. He signed a one-year contract with the Philadelphia Eagles. A host of other signings. Was a host of other signings and a host of other trades, including the two guys you're really watching out for, which are Tony Romo and Jay Cutler. Now, if you are a Jet, you have to be thinking, okay, we're out on Romo. So Cutler really is your only chance. If not, then you're looking at Geno Smith, which means you're looking at another absolute disaster of a year. And I would think if you are a Jet fan, you have had absolutely enough of disaster years. The Geno Smith experiment did not work. It has failed. It has failed miserably. The Hackenberg experiment never should have happened. Now you have other guys in the mix. Fitzpatrick's not going to be there, so now you're left with Geno Smith and Hackenberg. Those are your two. And that sounds scary because it should. Those are your two. You have to get Cutler or Romo, one of the two. And I'll tell you, Cutler's not going back to Chicago, especially after Chicago just put, what was it, $17 million down on Mike Glennon today? That was funny. For a guy who's thrown only about 600 passes in the NFL, you know, that's absolutely hilarious that you would go and spend that much money. But it just goes to show the desperation that these teams are in, that these teams have to find a genuine quarterback that is worth something in this league. If you have somebody who you think is even half as good as you think they are going to be, you've got to pay them money. And you've got to pay them a lot. If you look at a guy like Mike Glennon, who now is going to be making $15 million a year, and you're Aaron Rodgers, who's making $20 million a year, you got to be sitting there going, okay, I've won a Super Bowl, and I'm getting $20 million a year. This guy is, what, 5-13 in his NFL career as a starter, and he got $15 million? I'd be looking at my agent going, what are you doing? Why have we not tried to restructure a deal here by now? It's incredible, the asking price for a quarterback in this league, especially one like a Brock Osweiler who got traded to the Cleveland Browns just so Houston could get rid of him. Houston sent Brock Osweiler and a second round pick in 2018 and got nothing in return. They got cap space in return. That's it. That's all they got. They got cap space. Now, the Browns are expected to trade Brock Osweiler, which, unless you're drafting Deshaun Watson, that makes no sense. I understand Osweiler is not good, or not as good as we thought he was going to be after he was playing in Denver. But he's a downside better than RG3. After that trade, this is what the Browns have over the next 2 years in drafts. 2017, they have 2 first rounders, 2 seconds, a third, a fourth, 3 fifths, and 2 sixths. That's just this year. Next year, they have a first, 3 seconds, a third, 2 fourths, 1 fifth, 2 sixths, and a seven. That's 22 draft picks over the next 2 years. If Cleveland can't figure it out with Cleveland has eight first or second round picks in the next two drafts. If they can't figure something out to turn that team around to get it to at least a 7-win team in those 2 years, everyone's got to be fired. Fire the freaking owner. If you have 3 first rounders and 3 first rounders and 5 second rounders in 2 years, and if your team is still dreadful, fire everybody. Fire the guy who mops the bathroom. So you would expect at least in 2019, Cleveland's going to do something. And you know what the best part of it is? They're probably from one of these teams, San Francisco, from these teams that are so in desperate need of a quarterback, they might get another top 1 or 2 pick for Osweiler. That or you're getting a bunch of mid drafts, which that ain't bad either. Again, you always look. Yeah, sure, Peyton Manning was drafted high, but Brady was drafted in the 6th round. How many times do we have to hear that? Brady was drafted in the 6th round. Became the greatest quarterback ever. So those late round guys are there. I'm not going to say he's going to be better than Brady, but those late round guys are there. They can be successful. I mean, the asking price for quarterbacks, and everyone is so focused on Tony Romo, which they should be, but it's all the wrong teams that are involved in it. What is Kansas City going to do with Alex Smith? Alex Smith is coming off of what, a 13-3 year. He's not going to sit on the bench behind Tony Romo. I mean, and the only reason why, I mean, if you're Tony Romo, I mean, if you're Kansas City, the only reason why you would even think about getting Tony Romo is to keep him away from Denver. And Denver has Simeon and Paxton. So why would you do that if you're Denver? Why would you want to go to the AFC West if you're Tony Romo? You have to face great defensive pass rushers every single divisional game. And I don't know if you guys remember, but Tony Romo tends to get hurt a lot when he gets hit by defensive pass rushers. That would be one of the dumbest divisions for him to go to. If you're signing Tony Romo, you're hoping to get Tony Romo for as long as you possibly can. It makes no sense for him to go to the AFC West, where he has to deal with elite pass rushers every divisional game. Half the season, he's dealing with elite pass rushers. Makes no sense for him to go there. And you would have to think with the trading of Brock Osweiler, you're not going to rely on Savage. You're not relying on Pete Savage. I'm sorry, it's not happening. If you're Houston, you're not worried about Savage. Savage was just a way for you to get into the playoffs. Honestly, that was one of the worst playoff games of this year, probably the worst playoff game this year. And Savage had to face Connor Cook, a rookie out of Michigan State. It was the by far the worst game of the postseason this year. Savage is not your answer. So the only thing is, now that you've opened up all that money, you have the money that you have. You've opened up all that money after getting rid of Brock Osweiler. There's only one guy going there. It's Tony Romo. You have to think Romo is locked in Houston. It is going to take a massive contract from Denver or Kansas City in order to get Romo to go there now. Because Houston can look at Romo and say, "Listen, Tony, we just traded away our what we thought was going to be our franchise starting quarterback. We have all of the money in the world. Put your number on the check and we'll pay it." That's the only thing Houston has to do. Put your number on the check, we'll pay it. How much do you feel you're worth? 20 mil? Done. That's all they have to do. And it was a couple of hours ago that the Cowboys were looking to still try to trade Tony Romo instead of releasing him. Smart move for Dallas. Meanwhile, the Philadelphia Eagles have completely revamped their wide receiver core. They're going to be very dangerous this year, the Eagles. You put receivers like Torrey Smith and Alshon Jeffrey next around Carson Wentz, the Eagles are going to be tough this year on offense. They're going to be very tough on offense this year. They will be able to match you score for score on offense this year. Defense, still don't know. Signed Torrey Smith today and Alshon Jeffrey. Alshon Jeffrey's a 1 year deal. But still, that's a big one. The Giants get Brandon Marshall, which, I mean, if you're a Giant fan, you're happy with that. If you're like me and you're a Giants fan, you're happy with that. And the reason why you're happy with that is the same thing that Marshall actually said in an interview. He goes, "You got Odell Beckham, who's the number one, the undisputed number one. I've gone to a place where I don't have to be the number one. You got Odell, who is the number one, the undisputed number one, and then you have me and Sterling Shepard. You got two number twos. There you go." And Brian Monso from WFAN posted not that long ago. He goes, the Giants have Odell, Marshall, and Shepard. The Eagles now have Alshon, Matthews, and Smith. You want to talk about a wide receiver core? You want to talk about the wide receiver cores in the NFL? Those two right now are pretty much the standard. It's incredible how those two have. It's incredible how those two have really turned their wide receiver cores around. It's amazing. And from what's being heard, is that Jay Cutler that the Jets are number one on are the number one on the Jay Cutler list, which is the way it should be. The Jets can't be number two or number three. They need a wide receiver. They need a quarterback like that in order to do anything. They are going. They need a quarterback in order to do anything this year. Eric Decker's coming off of injury. That is going to help massively. You got Jalen Marshall, who's coming off of injury. You got the one. You got the other wide receiver whose name I can't think of right now. You got Inunwa. Inunwa can grow under Cutler. Now Cutler's not the elite quarterback who is going to get you to the playoffs. And I mean, let's be honest here. The Jets drafting another quarterback would probably be the dumbest decision that they make. It could probably be the dumbest decision that they make to draft another quarterback. The Jets have not had any success drafting a quarterback since Chad Pennington. Period. Since Chad Pennington left, the Jets have not been able to draft a quarterback. So get Cutler in here to, if anything, provide a little bit of stability. Provide a small, tiny little bit of stability. While you go out and look for another one. The Jets should not be worried about any other position. After the Jets get Cutler, then the other positions are easier to get. That cornerback you're looking at, yeah, it might be a little easier to get him after you got Jay Cutler. Oh, you need a defensive tackle? Oh, Jay Cutler's here? Yeah, sure, maybe. You need an offensive lineman? You need a center now that Nick Mangold's gone? Yeah, yeah, Cutler's here. I'm cool. We got a chance. Jay Cutler here guarantees you one thing. It guarantees you won't go 4-12 again, or 3-13, or whatever the hell the Jets went last year. It guarantees you that at least. Then it's up to the Jets, which is a scary thought. It's up to the Jets to do the rest. And the only thing that gives me faith in the fact that the Jets that it's up to the Jets to do it is that you have two guys in Mike McCagnon and Todd Bowles who have to know that if they don't perform this year, they're fired. They won't have a job this time next year if they don't perform. They have to know that. So not only are they going to have to perform, they're under pressure to perform. And if they don't, it's their jobs. That is the one thing that gives me faith that the Jets are actually going to do it properly this time. Is because you have Todd Bowles and McCagnon who both appear to care about their jobs, care about their job status, in charge of building this. It's not like Tannenbaum who had given up with Rex Ryan. It's not like Rex Ryan who could care less about anything but getting on the back page. You have two people. You have a head coach and a general manager who genuinely care about how the team performs on the field, whose jobs are on the line. So they are going to do everything in their power to make sure they have a job this time next year. As a Jet fan, that should give you at least a small, tiny, little, minuscule bit of hope for 2017. Back after this. All right, we're back. You're listening to Frank Fired Up here on the Mixed Up Sports Network. Um, a, as I said at the beginning of the show, now we haven't done soccer on this network in quite some time. Really, it was Euro. It was the Euros last year. Was the last time we did was the last time we did any form of soccer on the network. Now, we wouldn't be doing this unless there was a major reason. And there is a major reason. You had two teams. You had one game between Barcelona and Paris Saint-Germain. Now, in the first leg, you're playing in Paris in the first leg. PSG goes and wins 4-0 against Barcelona in a game where Barcelona was completely and utterly embarrassed. Okay, everyone was saying, "Oh, is this the end of the mighty Barcelona teams? Is Barcelona done? Is this and that?" You get to Camp Nou last night, or 2 nights ago now, I think, and immediately you get a goal in the third minute from Luis Suarez. Now you have to think Barcelona has to win 5-4 in this. Barcelona has to win. If they don't want to go to extra time or if they don't want to go to penalties, they have to win this game 5-0. Okay? They have to win this game 5-0. And if Paris Saint Germain scores, that really puts Barcelona on the back foot because then if it's a tie on aggregate, then it goes to the team who had the more away goals. And since PSG won 4-0 at home, Barcelona didn't have any away goals. PSG gets it because they had an away goal in this game. If they're tied on aggregate. So then Barcelona has to win straight up. And you immediately get a goal from Luis Suarez in the third minute. The game sort of levels out. You get an own goal, which is a killer in the 40th minute. It's just like hockey. You don't want to allow a goal in the last couple minutes before the period ends. Same thing for soccer. You don't want to do it. It puts a bad taste in your mouth going into the half. And it continued going into the second half when in the 50th minute Lionel Messi gets a penalty kick, and you know it's Lionel Messi. You know he's scoring. So now now with 40 minutes left in the match, it is 50. It's 3-0. So Barcelona has almost come back and tied this thing on aggregate. Then you get the hard one. If you're a Barcelona fan, you had to have a feeling that this was the end of the game. When Edinson Cavani scores in the 62nd minute, you have to have the feeling that this is the end of the game. because now you're down 5-3 on aggregate. You have to score three more goals in 27 minutes by the time they set the ball up. Three more goals in 27 minutes in order to win this thing. And then it somehow falls all in place for Barcelona. Neymar scores in the 88th. Luis Suarez draws a very weak penalty. Suarez went down as you would expect any soccer player to, as if he got shot. Suarez gets the penalty, draws the penalty, then it's Neymar. Neymar scores two goals in 3 minutes. He scores in the 88th and in the 90th plus one. And you have plus five, and you have 5 minutes added on to the 90. So now you're tied on aggregate, still not good. You're leading 5-1 in this match. You've scored five goals, and you're going to tie on aggregate and lose because of the one. Next time down the pitch, in the 90th minute plus five, Sergei Roberto times a run perfectly. And Barcelona scores with about 10 seconds left in the match to go up 6-1 and 6-5 on aggregate. That stadium almost was torn down. Everybody loved everybody that night. They showed multiple angles of it on Fox, 'cause it's Fox that has UEFA. They showed multiple shots on Fox of people hugging and jumping up and down and screaming and crying. Because they knew that they just witnessed the most improbable comeback in UEFA Champions League history. This is not Barcelona coming back against, to use an Italian team. This is not Barcelona coming back against Sassuolo or Empoli, a team that's going to be down in the lower league next year. This is Paris Saint-Germain. This is a team that has won the French league the last couple years. And if they haven't won it, they've been in the top two or three. Going into that game, you're just hoping that Barcelona puts on the good show. You get a small little feeling when Suarez scores immediately in the third minute. You really start to get a feeling when you get that late own goal. An own goal is a killer to begin with, but for it to happen in the last 5 minutes of a half is devastating. When Lionel Messi scores when you get the penalty 4 or 5 minutes into the second half, you start to think, okay, we got something now because now you're only down 4-3. We really got something. And then Cavani scores, and it takes the wind completely out of your sails. Neymar puts in the late effort. Suarez draws a penalty 2 minutes later. And then the incredible goal. I am a Real Madrid fan. I detest Barcelona. But even I have to sit back and applaud that effort. It's hard to get one goal in soccer against a bad team, but to score six when you need to have six against a world powerhouse takes something special. And that is why I just spent 10 minutes on one soccer game. This wasn't even a quarter. This was a round of 16. This was a this was the round before the quarterfinals. Like I said, I detest Barcelona, but you got to give credit where credit is due. That is an incredible, impossible comeback. And it was the goal by Cavani that made it even more special because then they had to go out and actually beat them on aggregate. Because if you win 5-1 and you tie them 5-5 on aggregate, PSG goes in on away goals. There's no more tying on aggregate. It's either you win or you lose. And they were able to pull it off. Back after this. All right, we're back. We'll get to the NFL really quick just to run down these deals before we end the show today. Mike Glennon getting $18.5 million guaranteed on a 3-year deal with the Bears. Left tackle Russell Okung has signed a 3-year deal with the LA Chargers. I'm sorry, a 4-year deal, $53 million with 13 and a quarter guaranteed. Rashad Jones signs a 5-year deal with the Dolphins. Bills signed safety Micah Hyde for 5 years, 30 mil, 14 guaranteed. Deshaun Jackson signs a 3-year, $33.5 million contract with the Bucks. Offensive tackle Riley Reef is now in Minnesota. Terrell Pryor to visit with the Redskins. Jeffrey, a 1-year, $14 million deal with the Eagles. We've already gone over the Osweiler trade. Again, Cleveland not expecting to keep Osweiler. The Saints agree in principle to a deal with former offensive guard Larry Warford. Lions release DeAndre Levy. Bucks agree to terms with defensive tackle Chris Baker. The Jaguars get Calais Campbell on a $60 million deal. Former Bengals offensive lineman Kevin Zeitler, 5 years, $60 million to Cleveland. So at least Cleveland has like $100 million to spend, and they're spending it. Stephon Gilmore, cornerback Stephon Gilmore, goes from Buffalo to New England. Saints bring back Nick Fairley on a $30 million deal. Cleveland's a 5-year, $51.2 million contract extension to Joel Bitonio. Jaguars signed cornerback AJ Boye from. I may have mispronounced that. Former Houston corner. Denver Broncos sign ex-Cowboy guard Ronald Leary. I would assume in an attempt to lure Romo. Torrey Smith, a 3-year deal to the Eagles. Eagles have released Connor Barwin. Kenny Britt lands a 4-year deal with the Browns. Rams get Whitworth from Cincinnati. Packers sign Nick Perry to a 5-year deal. Jamal Charles and the Seattle Seahawks have interest in each other. Ravens signed Danny Woodhead. Ravens expected to add defensive back Tony Jefferson. Dolphins re-signed Kenny Stills, 4 years, $32. And that's pretty much everything that's gone on. Colts trade Dwayne Allen to New England. Bengals re-sign LaFell. Jags expected to get Barry Church. Hoyer agrees in principle with the 49ers. Dolphins to re-sign Andre Branch. Ravens release Elmas Dumerville. Bills keep Tyrod Taylor. Lions set to make Wagner top paid right tackle. And that's pretty much it. But the one thing from NFL.com that I do love is this article, which is the story we were going to get into next. Tim Tebow's spring training debut was an apocalypse. If you want to get clicks, Congratulations, Dan Hanzus. You have created a wonderful headline, sir. Now, if you didn't watch the Mets spring training game against Boston yesterday, then you won't know. If you didn't watch the game, then you won't know that Tim Tebow went 0 for 3 with a strikeout, a hit batsman, and grounded into a double play, which, because the bases were loaded, scored a run, which actually tied the game 4-4 at that time. Tim Tebow, as I'm sitting here watching it right now, Tebow's full first at bat looks at a strike from Porcello. Like I said, I'll tell you what, I'll give the Mets a ton of credit for doing this. Two pitches have gone by. He's swung more outside the box warming up than he has at the plate. Here comes the third pitch. Overmatched on a fastball. There you go. That's a good look. That's an incredibly good look if you're Tim Tebow. The 1-2 looks at a fastball at the knees and then has the nerve to complain at the umpire. So there you go. That's Tim Tebow's first at bat. Oh, Jesus. Is the one swing that he took, and yeah, that's a strike, son. That is at the knees. And then you have the nerve to smile back at the umpire. Congratulations. Good job. And now I'm going to try to entertain myself watching him hit into this double play. Grounder to second, and then he gets a standing ovation. So there you go. So that was Tim Tebow's day. Unfortunately, they don't have the hit batsman here. They don't have the hit by pitch here. So, fortunately. So Tim Tebow now, in his professional sports career, has an NFL touchdown, both running and throwing, a playoff victory against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and now a Major League Baseball RBI. Granted, it was in spring training, and it wasn't technically a hit. Well, it wasn't technically a hit. It wasn't a hit at all. To his professional resume. That kid is going to continue to be a circus. And like again, it doesn't matter where he goes. He is going to be a circus no matter where he goes. And honestly, now that I think about it, honestly, I think when he made that play, when he got that RBI, I honestly think I heard Skip Bayless have a crisis. I think I may have heard that. I know Skip's in LA, so working for Fox Sports now, which Shannon Sharp, I'm sure, is reveling at working with an incredible sports analyst like Skip Bayless. That's just a sentence that doesn't sound right. An incredible sports analyst, Skip Bayless. Those are two things that should never go together. Like here, let's play catch with this beehive. Or President Donald J. Trump. Those things should never go together, but do. So let's run down the New York area scores before I get in trouble. Last night, the NBA here. Hold on, my sorry, my computer's having a little bit of fun with me here. But I mean, from today, what have you learned from today? From the first day of spring training, what have you learned? Well, the thing that I learned first day of spring training is this. First day of free agency, pardon me, is this. The quarterback price is only going to get higher and higher and higher. The Eagles are going to be good offensively next year, which good. They're doing exactly what they need to do around Carson Wentz. Tony Romo most likely, more likely than not, is going to Houston. Most likely via trade to Houston. The Jets are in the driver's seat to get Jay Cutler. That and nobody in the AFC West is happy with their quarterback situation except for Oakland. So that's what you learn in in this first day of NFL free agency, which of course is going to continue to go on. The Brooklyn Nets last night were going for their second straight win. That's funny. They lose to the Atlanta Hawks in Atlanta 110-105. They now have a pitiful 11-52 record. They play the Dallas Mavericks next. The New York Knickerbockers blew a big lead in in the third quarter, which is their MO this year. They lose to the Bucks last night 104-93. They're now 26-39. God help them, because nobody else will. Rangers don't play again until tomorrow. They play the Hurricanes tomorrow. I'm sorry, they play tonight, rather. Sorry. I forgot tonight. Tonight is Thursday. I said it at the top of the show. They play the Hurricanes tonight in Raleigh. The Devils play the Avalanche in Colorado this evening. The Islanders are in Vancouver taking on the Canucks this evening. Going to games in the very near future. The Brooklyn Nets will play Friday against the Mavericks. The Knicks Saturday against the Pistons. That's a 2 o'clock game, which means more likely than not it's national television. Sorry to whichever provider picks that one up, probably ESPN. The New York Red Bulls play the Colorado Rapids on Saturday. Sunday, the New York City FC plays DC United. Spring training today, the Yankees. Yesterday the Yankees beat Team Canada 10-4. They beat the Atlanta Braves today 8-7. Mets yesterday in a split squad game lose to the Houston Astros 12-2 in one half of the split. But in the half of the split that mattered, as far as Tim Tebow goes, the Mets beat the Red Sox 8-7 yesterday, and they played the Tigers today to a 5-5 tie. So that's what you got as far as that goes. I'm surprised I didn't see any college basketball scores, because they are right now. They're in the middle of conference championship time, and TCU today stuns number one Kansas 85-82 in the quarterfinal of the Big 12 championship. The number one Kentucky Jayhawks have been eliminated from the Big 12 tournament. So that one's huge. Number 14 Duke beats number 10 Louisville to eliminate them from the ACC semifinals. To eliminate them from the ACC quarterfinals. They will now play North Carolina for the third time in the ACC final tomorrow. Games currently going on right now on ESPN2. Indiana leads Iowa 29-24. ESPNU later on tonight will have, well, starting now actually, we'll have number 11 West Virginia versus Texas. Seton Hall defeats Marquette 82-76. Number 5 Oregon beats Arizona State 80 to 57, pardon me. Again, starting right now on ESPN, number 16 Florida State against Virginia Tech. On FS1 right now, number 18 Butler against Xavier. Michigan State over Penn State 78 to 51. Alabama over Mississippi State 75 to 55. UNC over Miami 78 to 53. That, and if you're a fan of Rutgers, last night Rutgers beat Ohio State to knock them out of the Big Ten tournament. So there you go. With that. Villanova knocks out St. John's 108-67. Iowa State over Oklahoma State 92 to 83. Arizona set to play Colorado in 2 hours. Notre Dame versus Virginia in 2 hours on ESPN. 2 hours away on ESPNU will be Baylor, Kansas State. And at 11:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN will be UCLA, USC. That's this evening. There was another big game last night, wasn't there? Ah, well, anyway. What was it? Just St. John's versus Georgetown. St. John's beating Georgetown. They ended up losing today pretty badly, but St. John's beating Georgetown by 1 yesterday. So that was a big one there. And as far as your conference tournament goes, this week, next weekend we will do next week. Sorry, next week. I'm not sure, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday next week, we'll fill out a show bracket just the same way we did last year. Live on air. I'll probably do that next Tuesday or Wednesday after the NFL free agency stuff sort of dies down. Baseball seems to be getting into a groove. The Knicks are actually staying out of the news, which is better for them. Haven't heard anything about the Nets all year. And that's pretty much it. So we'll try Tuesday for the bracket. So thank you very, very much, guys, for listening. I hope you enjoyed. We'll be back, of course, with more NFL free agency tomorrow. Thank you very much for listening, and I will see you guys then.